This weekend, 2 world-class championships combined at the racing capital of the world to close out their 2025 seasons. For GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, the season began back in March at California's Sonoma Raceway, with stops along the way at Sebring, COTA, VIR, Road America, and Barber Motorsports Park. North America's best are joined this weekend by our friends from the Intercontinental GT Challenge, which caps off its globe-trotting year here with the Indianapolis 8-Hour presented by AWS. Hello, welcome to my backyard, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, for pre-qualifying for this year's Indy 8-Hour. My name is Ryan Marine, joined as always by Calvin Fish with Amanda Busick in the pits, and some extra help for this long race here this weekend. Jonathan Grace joins us in the booth. DJ Clark will help us in the pit lane. It is a brisk autumn morning here in Indianapolis, the state capital of Indiana. Light breeze, temperatures approaching 60 degrees on the Fahrenheit scale. Much different than we saw during the afternoon yesterday, but similar into the evening where we had night practice just last night. Calvin, it is a star-studded grid as ever, and for all involved, big-time championships yet to be decided, both in the North American Series as well as IGTC.
Yeah, really cool to come down to the final round. All of those driver championships are open in both of the title chases there, so that's going to be cool. I really like the fact that this year the IGTC runners have to run a similar format where they run a silver in that pro class. I think that really gives the North American-based teams a real shot at going head-to-head with some of the big powerhouse teams globally. We
saw a North American team finish first on the road last year, even with a silver in their driver lineup. That was reversed, though, due to a time penalty, so WRT took the overall win just ahead of Wright Motorsports. But Jonathan, Wright is coming here loaded for bear. They have one goal and one goal only. They're not thinking about a full season. They're just jumping in because they have unfinished business this weekend.
Oh, they certainly do. And, of course, the Pro Class Championship is top of mind, but I think they would all be lying if they said they didn't want to win this thing overall. They were oh so close. They're coming in with the exact same driver lineup, Adam Adelson, Elliott Skier, and Lauren Heinrich, who had a chance to talk to him a couple weeks ago, and he said, yes, I think it's only going to help us the fact that we are all together. He gave some comments to reporters saying that same thing. They've got a little change in the livery, that yellow stripe that we see just off center on that beautiful green Porsche. It's got the yard of bricks on it because they want to win here at the 8-Hour.
Of course, the world-famous Brickyard. This track opened in 1909, originally a crushed rock and tar surface that was replaced pretty darn quickly when it proved to be quite unpopular and a bit dangerous with the both car and motorcycle competitors that raced here. So 1910, for a handful of races that were held at the Speedway, the world-famous bricks went down. Those same bricks are still under the surface and are exposed at the start-finish line. That is the world-famous yard of bricks at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 25 cars, Cal, on the entry list, and it's a who's who of GT racing. You look across the board, even in the Pro-Am entries, yes, they might be technically the second lowest class in the reckoning, but you look at the pros in these cars that will be finishing out the race, and they have a very good chance to race up at the very front of the field as well. Well, we mentioned Amanda Busick would be pounding the pavement for us. She is down in the pits. Let's check in now for the first time this weekend with Amanda.
Hey, Ryan, it is officially time for the Indianapolis 8-Hour here at the Brickyard. I'm happy to welcome to our fan base the one, the only Valentino Rossi, who will make that 46 effort with a special team. Charles Wirtz won here last year. Kelvin van der Linde going for the title. Valentino, welcome to Indianapolis. What's your experience so far?
Ciao a tutti. Thanks a lot. It's a great pleasure because this track, this place, is the history of motorsport. And I raced here 10 years ago with the MotoGP, and it was great. For sure, with the car is different, but I like the track. This type of races are very good, and we are here for try to make a good result. Looks like that we are quite competitive. We have still to find some 10th, but we hope that we will be ready for the race of tomorrow.
Good luck.
Thank you.
The doctor now, an accomplished GT racer. He's won several GT3 races in GT World Challenge Europe and looking to cap off the year here in Indianapolis with a victory where he has won before, but of course when he was here in MotoGP, he was going the other direction.
Yeah, very different. Just like we spoke to Connor Daly, who's a veteran of the Indy 500. He's in this field as well as former Indy 500 winner Will Power, so that's a late addition, which is very exciting. As you said, Ryan, stacked lineups and seems to get stronger and stronger every year.
No question about it. Great grid here on site. Great mix of cars as well. The Intercontinental GT Challenge going through a bit of a renaissance right now with increased manufacturer interest. And why not when you have races like the 5 on the calendar? Bathurst and the Nürburgring and Spa, of course, plus Suzuka most recently just about a month or so ago. And then to finish off here at Indianapolis, Jonathan, that's a list of tracks that everyone would like to check off the bucket list.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And of course, everyone wants to win at Indy, but I think if you want to look at the state of IGTC right now, that wide shot that you were just looking at is an indication of how healthy this grid is. 25 GT3 cars. Like you said, we've got Will Power, Valentino Rossi. We've got some of the best GT3 factory drivers you'll find anywhere in the world of sports car racing, and they all want to win at one of the most iconic racing venues, one of the most iconic sporting venues anywhere in the world.
Don't forget Chaz Monster, the Supercars star.
Absolutely.
He's in the field as well, teamed up with Will Power, just adding some spice to the occasion. We mentioned the fact that championships are to be decided here this weekend, and in GT World Challenge America, the AM Class Championship. It's been 2 cars, Ford versus Ferrari, going at it back and forth all year long, and it sets up a winner-take-all season finale, Cal.
Yeah, just 3.5 points separating the 2 cars coming into this championship round, so it's going to be a fascinating battle. It's been a kind of a friendly rivalry. The 2 camps really kind of enjoy each other and have enjoyed the success of that Ford Mustang. The Dollarhide team have really done a great job of just elevating that program each and every weekend as we've gone through this 25 season. So speaking to Eric Powell yesterday, he said they've got a great group of guys. We're really learning this car. We seem to go from strength to strength, and I think it could come down to a shootout between Eric and Oz Negri here come the checkered flag here on Saturday evening.
And I think one of the cool things you mentioned, Eric Powell, Cal, he's been one of the consistent fixtures in this lineup. We saw Dollarhide go through a couple different co-drivers for Scott at the beginning of the season. Eric Powell came in, getting, I think, arguably one of the biggest sports car call-ups, opportunities, if you will, in his career to date. He said when he got the call, he and his wife were jumping for joy. He couldn't believe it. He has enjoyed his time mightily. But I think it's helped the team to have a consistent driver pairing with Scott Dollarhide and Eric Powell, both of them, I think, pushing each other to find speed. And they in the 163 have found themselves on track in just about every race. It's been super exciting to watch them battle it out. We may have only 2 cars in GT World Challenge America powered by AWS in the AM class, but boy, they've given us a fight this season. But I do think for the development of that Mustang GT3 and the progression of that team throughout the season, Eric and his consistency has been a big part of that.
And they bring in Stefano Gattuso, who drove with them at Sebring. So it is a lineup where all 3 have worked together at times over the course of this year. And not all the lineups, not many of the lineups can say that.
Yeah, I think that Eric is a great yardstick as well. Gattuso has had a lot of time in this car, not the exact car, but a similar chassis over in the World Endurance Championship. So he's gone well over there. I think if Eric can prove himself to be at a similar, if not better level here this weekend, that could give him some opportunities moving forward as well as a really stellar bronze driver.
Well, it is, of course, pre-qualifying. We're in a holding pattern right now. There was a GT America qualifying session that preceded this one, which was ended with a red flag. An incident, as you could see, necessitated a repair to the tire barriers at the exit of that quick chicane. And so, consequently, we're sitting and waiting for a few more moments here about to get started. For those that might be new to Intercontinental GT Challenge, you might be wondering, what is pre-qualifying exactly? It's essentially a practice session, but there is the chance, though, that this could set the grid for the race if, for whatever reason, the subsequent qualifying sessions were to be canceled. So that's why we have that. Let's hear from some more protagonists in the pits.
Well, we are sitting next to Kenton Cook as we wait out this session as well, Ryan. And I'm also going to sit next to him because I want you to conserve your energy here this weekend. This man's going for 2 championships here at Indianapolis this weekend. But let's start with this one right here. Connor Daly is in that car ready to go out as we kick off pre-qualifying. You and Connor have had an incredible season already, leading the points championship, but it's winner take all here this weekend. What's that pressure?
I mean, yeah, we just have to go out and execute and do the best we can. Yeah, being partnered with both Connor Daly and Connor DeFelipe this weekend, having Connor as our third is awesome. He was with us last year and did a phenomenal job. Yeah, this year has been solid. You know, we having the Random Vandals and being partner with Connor DeFelipe has been a real pleasure, and it's been fun to finally, like, you know, get to co-drive with Connor, because you know we knew each other from, you know, growing up on the West Coast. We didn't really spend a whole lot of time together there, but you know, now we finally get the opportunity to work with each other. So it's been a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm trying not to get messed with too much by these guys, but these guys have a good time, and that's what we're going to have this weekend.
I think it's funny because in the background everyone was laughing. I could even hear Calvin laughing over his microphone of your team kind of making fun of us here in the background. But why does that sum up the energy of Random Vandals?
I mean, you could just look at our pit stand. I mean, like, we've got a raccoon holding a martini glass on one, and then the other, I can't exactly see what that one was, but he's about to show you. But definitely the guys have a good time.
And obviously what you've been able to do in SRO America this season, but just 2025 for you on a whole, Kenton, what will it be reflective of you and your career?
It's been a year to remember. You know, having the results that we've had this year is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and you kind of just have to try to not forget that and not lose sight of how few opportunities people get like this, and to be in a position that we're doing as well as we are. I mean, it's truly unique, you know. So grateful and appreciative and stoked for what we've been able to accomplish. I just hope we can keep it rolling, you know. And yeah, we've got to see if we can stay within touch of JMF or beat them, and try to lock in that championship for GT3.
It's been fun watching, Kit. And just on cue right behind us, Connor Daly in that BMW, ready to get started in pre-qualifying, guys.
What a year for Kenton, I think, across all of the championships that he's competing in. 14 wins is a pretty amazing number. And the crew were giving him a hard time. You can see them limping in the backdrop because last weekend he managed to roll his ankle prior to the race there for the IMSA championship that he was chasing. But he had to revert to right foot braking. And that's not an easy thing to do, but he's immediately on pace. But he seems to be 100% fit for this weekend, so that's good to see. But it looks like they're pretty relaxed with the championship on the line. Just to sort of set up the scenario there, if the 34 car should win, they're the nearest competitor. That would then mean that the 99 car would have to finish second. Outside of that, basically the title is theirs if they take the green.
Yep, and finishing fifth or better would eliminate the RS1 pairing of Alex Sedgwick and Jan Heylen from contention as well. Mathematically, they were in the hunt, but would need a lot of things to break their way. Effectively, cars not starting to be able to come away with the title.
I think only 4 cars are eligible for points in that class, so that kind of takes that one
It sure
off
does.
the table.
And back to the point on that, Kenton, though, what a year he's had that sprained ankle last week before Petit Le Mans, still was able to put in some great stints, and he's going to be busy here this weekend too, because he's going for not just the GT World Challenge America Championship, but also Pirelli GT4 America. He's got a title to try and go out and clinch this weekend as well. And he was telling me last weekend, couldn't I have done this, you know, any other weekend instead of right before maybe the busiest 2-week stretch of the season? Chance to hear from some more drivers down in the pit lane. Amanda's been busy for us.
Well, it's an all-Australian entry for the 75 as Kenny Habul looks to try to compete in this Independent Cup racing along in the IGTC grid. And we did get a wave from Will Power as he gets set to go out for pre-qualifying. How did this come together for you guys, Kenny? I know it's been a long time in the making.
It's been a long time. We've been buddies for a long time. We first raced against each other in Formula Ford 30 years ago almost. So been mates for a long time, very proud of what he's achieved, and this race clashed with a lot of races in Europe, so I couldn't get any Mercedes drivers, which is unusual. And I started thinking and looking through the phone book. I thought, you know what, if I'm going to pick someone, I'm going to pick the best. And luckily he was available and they let him do it.
Well, you think of what Will Power's experience here, but you are, there's a lot on the line for you here this weekend. Why might he be the edge that you needed?
You know, it's just, it's always the same. These places, you've got to be really careful in the beginning. It's a big, steep learning curve for Will. He got in the car yesterday and he said, something's wrong. And we said, what's wrong? He said, well, the car's rolling around. I better bring it in. They said, no, it's actually quite stiff. And there was a pause on the radio. He said, is this the way it is? I said, that's the way it is. So you better get used to it. And then he went purple, you know, in the middle sector. So it just shows how fast and how talented he is. So we'll be okay. And Chaz is a 1 in a million. He doesn't drive these cars very often, but when he gets in, he's immediately at the pace of the best guys. So I'm very lucky.
As a massive motorsports fan, I know we have a collection of Peter Brock cars that are in your stable. What does that name mean to you?
Mm-hmm. My wife said, if you come home with one more race car, we're getting divorced. And I said, is that a promise? No, I got a bunch of them, and they're being restored. I think there's a big anniversary next year, the 20th anniversary of his passing at Bathurst. So I'd probably take them all out and do parade laps. But it's nice because, you know, 1986, it was Australia versus the world at Spa. It was Peter Brock and Alan Moffat and John Harvey. So we have a similar theme here with our posters and shirts, and it's Australia versus the world. So let's hope.
Well, he took a special interest in you, didn't he?
He was good to me. He looked after me when I was a kid. I had a bit of a rough childhood, and he took me in, and I was the best wheel cleaner in the business, he said.
Good luck this weekend, Kenny.
Thank you.
Kenny's one of a kind. Great character. So much passion for this sport, and he has assembled a star-studded car. If you're an IndyCar fan, you're going to be watching this car because of Will Power. If you're a Supercars fan, you'll be watching because of Chaz Mostert. If you're a motorsport fan, you'll be watching because they're all in that car together. And Kenny, as you could tell in that interview, is a character par excellence.
Yeah, I think there are few individuals that come into a motorsport paddock of any kind, but especially in the GT3 ranks where Kenny has kind of made his bread and butter, that are as exciting as Kenny. We've seen the hair dyed in the past. They always show up with an incredibly shiny livery, whether it's chrome blue or chrome orange as it is in that stunning Sun Energy 1 livery on that Mercedes. And Kenny always incites a lot of excitement. I think the driver lineup, like you said, Ryan, is certainly an indication of that too.
And he's going for a championship himself, the Independent Cup within Intercontinental GT Challenge. And he's at an interesting position because the two other Independent Cup frontrunners that he's racing against, they're in Pro-Am entries. He's in a Pro entry, which means his drive time requirements are significantly less, and he can really lean then on that all-star lineup to help him score the points he needs.
Yeah, he certainly stacked the deck here this weekend, and I think he's gone for his 5th IGTC title here, so he's had success by doing similar kind of formats in the past. But he's a character, he's lively, and a little chilly even for him to go shirtless the first thing this morning, I guess.
I guess so. Well, he's got a great couple of co-drivers. I mean, Chaz last weekend made some headlines, didn't he? Was out early in the Bathurst 1000, the great race, and started wandering off and found some friends that were able to give him a few libations around the trackside, and he made some big fans, I think, in doing that.
Yeah, cracked a bear. That was a pretty cool video, and he's so chill. I mean, just the Aussies in general is such a fun group to have in our paddock, but yeah, Chaz fits that mold perfectly.
And Will Power, of course, 5 wins on the road course here at Indianapolis in IndyCar competition. That is tied with Michael Schumacher for the most wins in a top-level series on the Indianapolis road course, albeit a slightly different layout. Formula One used a different one than what Will Power has won on in IndyCar, but nevertheless, a remarkable achievement. Plus, of course, an Indy 500 winner. So he's got plenty of happy memories around this place.
Yeah, this might be his debut in GT3 machinery, but this place has been kind to him, and I think he knows his way around. I have no worries about Will Power at all.
Well, we are now just moments away from getting this session started. Barrier repair just about taken care of, and right on cue, there's the green flag. Clock starts to tick in 90 minutes. We expect the session to run in its entirety here, and look at the Land Rush making its way out of the pit lane and onto the racetrack, led by Justin Rothberg and the Turner Motorsport team that are going for another Pro-Am championship in GT World Challenge America this year, Cal.
Yeah, that was kind of a come-from-behind result here last year against all odds. Going up against ST Racing, had a bit of a rough day. This time they got the championship lead, have made it a little bit tighter with a little penalty that Justin got when he got into Todd Coleman late in the going at Barber. So that's certainly given the 11 squad from DXDT hope. And I think Similar to the scenario what we talked about in the Pro-Am class, should the 11 car win, it would mean the 29 car would have to follow them across the line. However, if 11 cars should not win, then the top 5 result will do it. And obviously Pro-Am's a little bit deeper in entry, so that makes that scenario a little bit more complex.
So look from on board the GMG Porsche. Kyle Washington would have loved to see that from on board as he got split on either side. Still working himself up to speed on this cool morning. No tire warmers, it should be noted, this year at GT World Challenge America, and that rule applies to this race. So those out laps, especially in cool conditions, extra treacherous. Everyone wanting to tiptoe here in the early stages. Let's talk about this road course here at IMS Calvin. Just a little bit under 2.5 miles around, 14 turns. Not much in the way of elevation change. A lot of it is pretty straightforward, but a few technical sections as well.
Yeah, I really like it. I mean, you got some high-speed stuff. You're touching about 165 down into turn 1, about 160 down Holman Boulevard into turn 7. There's a little bit of a nuance. It's not completely flat when you turn into turn 1 there, because there's at the exit of Speedway turn 4, of course. There's still a little bit of banking left there as you're turning into the corner. I find it tracks like this where the racetrack continues down into the Speedway, you know, visually it's difficult. They've got those massive marker boards, but if you're making a move over to the inside and you can't really see those with your peripheral vision, then the depth perception down there can get really tricky. Like, for example, if you're where Rothberg is right now trying to make a move down to the inside, you really can't see those big signboards over to the left there that hung on the catch fencing, of course. So that's the first trick. Then you come down there, it does kind of dip through there, but then through this section is relatively flat. You really need the car to change direction well, kind of bite the front end, and you really need to have the car that's pretty compliant and be able to eat up some of those curves.
Right here in particular, a lot of speed to be found through this chicane. This is a different layout than was used a handful of years ago, where actually that inner loop that was used by Formula One was employed. But most of the time, we have been using this format, which has become popularized by the IndyCar series when it races here. But if you're used to driving the track on Assetto Corsa Competizione, for instance, you might notice that the layout is slightly different than you find in that game, and that's because it was scanned in the year where the different layout was used due to some curbing issues in the chicane that actually stemmed from a NASCAR race. But we're getting a bit off piste. Let's talk about what's happening here and now. That was a look at the Archangel Motorsports McLaren. Archangel headed up by Mike Johnson, who actually is going to be doing some driving this weekend.
It's been a long time coming as well, 2 decades, in fact, for him, and it's how nice is it to see him back in a professional racing series. It's been a while, but it doesn't look like he's lost touch at all.
No, that'll be in GT America later on in the weekend, driving a GT4 car. But now back on the timing stand and doing what he's accustomed to doing, heading up the Archangel team. Watching Lone Star Racing here with Mercedes Ace behind the wheel. That would be Maxi Martin, I believe.
Correct. And they were quickest here last night. So team run by AJ Peterson. He's run the Mercedes brand in these season finales many times before. A lot of success. And just one of the smaller teams, but boy, he can make one of these Mercedes tick.
No question. Mercedes in general has been super stout all weekend long. You look at some of the testing times going back to night practice last night, and Mercedes has been a fixture up at the front. This one, though, last night had some issues, didn't it, Jonathan?
Yeah, it certainly did. If it was a really good night session for the 80, and good sessions overall for the number 04 CrowdStrike, ended early, just 5 laps, and Colin Brown had to pull off. We understand in conversations, Ryan, you said it was a gearbox issue that you learned from the team. And night running is so valuable here. This is one of the unique features of the Indianapolis 8-hour. It's the longest race that we see at the road course here at IMS, but also it ends under the cover of darkness, and getting those laps is extremely valuable. Just kind of flirting with track limits there, trying to avoid some traffic coming out of the pits, but a lack of running. The car obviously back on track now, but how much are they going to be playing catch-up here in pre-qualifying and using as much of that 90 minutes to gain back some of the track time they lost last night?
I think, unfortunately, I mean, you can't replicate the conditions, right, when it's dark and the track temp comes down, and I would say that session last night would be the most important in terms of really reading the car, to have a car that's going to be at its best for the final couple of hours here on Saturday evening. So, yeah, you can work on the car, Jonathan, but I think, you're not replicating the same track conditions that they saw here last night. So that could really come back to hurt them a little bit come the final 2 or 3 hours here tomorrow.
This is Charles Weerts here for Team WRT, reigning Intercontinental GT Challenge overall champion. Also was crowned GT World Challenge Europe Sprint champion this year, took the overall crown too, along with his co-driver Kelvin van der Linde. They've had a really successful year. We know Charles, though, will not be Intercontinental champion for back-to-back seasons because he's paired up with one of the drivers he's chasing for the title. Nevertheless, a great way to cap off a remarkable 12 months that really started here with the Indy 8 Hour, then continued into the 2025 season.
Yeah, and I think his teammate Calvin van der Linde may be the first person, if he should succeed in grabbing this IGTC title, to be the first one to win that and the overall GT World Challenge Europe title in the same season. So that's certainly a feather in his cap as he just made that big move over to the BMW brand for his debut season here. Obviously his brother's been here with BMW a little bit longer.
It's been fun too in the IGTC point standings too. Obviously Kelvin and Raffaele Marciello, the big headline, looking to clinch up the Drivers' Championship. They've shared a car at times this season. Team WRT has split them up, and I think it's been pretty fun to watch. Let's go and hear back from Amanda Busick in pit lane.
And guys, Aaron Telitz is in that McLaren right now. Thomas Merrill's actually acting as a camera guy outside of this interview right now. And with Mike Johnson, Ryan, I'm going to show you as soon as he turns around as he's talking probably to Aaron Telitz. We got our Rova pole position award for GT4. Said it's never coming off of his neck. What's this weekend like for you, Mike?
It's been terrifying. I can't believe that all these people allowed me to do this. I kept waiting for someone to say no. I went to SRO and can I do this? Thinking they'd say no. And they're like, sure. Then I went to like the team and I'm like, can we do this? They're like, sure. And I went to Todd and Scott Blinn and everybody else and they're like, yeah, go have fun. My wife even said yes, which was even the craziest of them all. So right now I'm just so happy to be here. I mean, like anybody else, growing up as a kid, watching races here and to finally be able to drive here after 50 years and get a pole. I mean, I know I'm only racing 2 other guys, but if I can stand on the podium and bring a car back in one piece, it'll be a lot of fun.
We're taking a look at that McLaren on track right now, and we were just talking off camera. We got to get you guys a win this season. Why do you have the lineup that can do it this weekend?
Well, I mean, you look around, we got Aaron Telitz, who is absolutely one of the fastest GT drivers, bar none, worldwide. Thomas Merrill, understated silver. I brought in the best to make me look super good. I'm lacking any hardware this weekend or this year, so I'm looking for at least a participation trophy for the weekend.
Good luck.
Thank you.
It's been close on a couple of occasions. Best finish this year for Todd and for Aaron was a 4th place, race 1 at Sebring. They've been there or thereabouts. It seems like Cal, he's getting more and more comfortable with the GT3 McLaren, but just haven't quite had the breakthrough. Maybe this is the weekend.
Yeah, and he's a busy man. I mean, so many of our RAM drivers are running businesses, and talking to Aaron recently, he actually visited me in Hilton Head just a couple of weeks ago and popped by the house. We had a good chat about Todd, and he said he's really taken to this GT3 car, but he said, I notice a big difference when he's not got his head in the business game on a weekend. And I spoke to Todd yesterday about that, and he said, absolutely. He said, sometimes I'm just swamped. But he said, I'm trying to get fully focused for this weekend and come away on a high from the 2025 season, and he's looking forward to the off-season. He's talking about going down to Dubai and stuff again, so we'll see what happens.
Had a good run last year, finished 2nd in class in the Gulf 12 Hour, actually won that race on the road, and then it was reversed post-race for a speeding infraction that frustratingly wasn't caught until after the race. So he got to celebrate a win and then had it taken away. That is not a fun situation for anyone involved, but again, relatively new to the game and certainly to GT3 racing, but has had good pace throughout the course of the year.
I think their development in pace has a lot of the progress may not have shown up on the stat sheets, on the result sheets, but it's come in practice sessions and finding those tenths in practice, and with Todd's work with Aaron and helping him chip away. You know, you think back to the beginning of the season, and Todd literally didn't fit right in the car. He was sliding around, and they had to get through some seat fit issues to get him comfortable. And I think once he reached that, a couple races in, he really started to unlock a lot of performance in that Archangel Motorsports McLaren as we ride on board here with Maxime Martin and look at the Lone Star car. But I'm curious to see what they can do this weekend. They seem to have had unproblematic running in some of the practice sessions and night running so far. I'm interested to see what we can do once the qualifying times really start to ramp up here.
I think it's a great point, Jonathan, because when you're driving a car on the limit, you have to be at one with the car. You can't have the car moving around and you're slipping and sliding in the seat and vice versa. So I think it was Sebring, I had a similar conversation with the team about getting that seat sorted out, because you're not going to be successful. I don't care who you are. If you're moving around, seat belts are loose or whatever, seat comes, fastenings come loose or whatever, that's not a great feeling when you're in a race car. You need to be absolutely buttoned down.
Well, Cal, I think better than any of us, how distracting is it when something just isn't right? A belt isn't comfortable, you're sliding around, there's just that little thing that's kind of poking you on the back as you're trying to focus on muscling a race car around.
Oh, it's a big distraction. I think if you got experience, obviously, you can kind of put it to one side and maybe deal with it a little bit better. But for an AM driver, a driver who doesn't have that sort of experience, it's very distracting. And before you know it, you're missing your marks. And at these speeds and commitments around Indianapolis, that is a huge problem.
12 minutes into pre-qualifying for the 2025 edition of the Indy 8-Hour presented by AWS. Watching the number 7 entry from Herbert Motorsport. This is Robert Renauer, Pro-Am entry, 5th in class right now, 7th overall on the timesheets. Interesting, we're seeing some pretty quick times here this morning in the mid-123s. That's only a couple of tenths off what we saw and what you would think would be pretty close to ideal conditions in the night running last night. And it's a bunch of Pro-Am and Am cars actually occupying 6 of the top 7 spots. Only Maxime Martin's Pro entry amongst that top group, actually top 8, are 7 of 8 non-Pro entries. Most notably, I think Eric Powell, look at that, sitting 4th quickest in the best of the Am class entries, that Ford Mustang. Talked about Eric earlier, and he has been really steady for the Dollarhide team all year.
Yeah, I had a chat with him yesterday, and I said, how's the pace? He said, good. He said, I haven't really done not even a sticker run, a set of tires that have minimal running on them, so I've been on worn rubber to this point. So he said, I'm curious to see what sort of pace I can get out of the car, and he's dropped that number a little bit further now. He's actually gone purple in Sector 3 here with a 23.6. That's only just over a tenth off the fastest time right now. So excellent, and it certainly sets them up well for that fascinating battle for the AM Class Championship.
Yeah, 3rd overall at the moment, still early going in that number 6 Dollarhide Racing Ford Mustang GT3. We talked about Eric and his development. He looks every weekend more and more comfortable in this car. I think it's been fun because Dollarhide in GT World Challenge America has been flying the flag on U.S. soil for Ford Mustang. It's one of the GT3 cars, I think, that draws in a lot of fans. You can see the Ford Mustang pony livery on the side. Ford has embedded some mechanics and engineers within the team to help them unlock some performance, and I think the second half of the season has been good to them. And to your point, Cal, I think just in unlocking some of that performance on track this weekend specifically, I think one of the unique characteristics about the IMS road course, one of the things that makes it tricky, is getting a clean lap. Traffic is always a factor here. When you get a good run and you have an opportunity to put some sticker tires through its pace, getting a clean lap isn't always as easy as it looks around here.
No, it can be quite tricky, and I think from a driver's performance as well, you need momentum, you need confidence. Eric's been knocking on the door of this sort of opportunity, and you said he and his missus were totally ecstatic when they got that call from the Dollarhide team. But he's had success in other championships this year, coming off a pair of victories in TCR competition over in the IMSA Championship. So it's just gradually building. He's on a big wave right now.
2021 TC America champion Eric Powell, who's come up the ladder through touring cars to GT4 and now GT3. Always good to see. Takes the Mustang into the pits. Now one of the front runners in GT World Challenge America Pro competition all year long, and one of the great stories as well. JMF Motorsports, their first year racing in GT3 anywhere, and it has been a potentially championship-winning season. They have been excellent, super consistent, slightly different livery this weekend with the chrome red to commemorate the fact they're in a championship battle. How impressive have they been, Cal, to make that jump from GT4 to GT3 and make it look seamless?
Yeah, it's been great. They've had 4 wins, 7 podiums on the season. So, and Mikael Grenier, we know his heritage, and for Mackay Stevens to get this opportunity at the GT3 level, he's grabbed it with both hands. And talking to the team this weekend, they said, we're so impressed with Mackay because, you know, this is his 7th race this year. Lucas Au comes in here. I think this is his 26th, 27th race aboard a Mercedes AMG. So for Mackay Stevens to go up against these factory drivers and be on the similar pace is just extreme. And I think the team are kind of, I don't know, fulfilled and love to see it. And I think for Mackay, he's such a nice guy, and to see him succeed at this level immediately. His racecraft has been superb here to hang on a couple of victories late in the season when he's been under a ton of pressure. I remember the one at Road America where Kenton suddenly got to him and he just held him off there in the late go, and that was really, you build on that. You get moments like that where it just really builds your confidence up and you move it to a different level.
Yeah, I think Mackay Stevens next year is going to be a whole threat. He's already developed an incredible amount, I think, more than you would expect for someone with his level of experience. He has been such a sponge in absorbing everything that Mikael Grenier has tried to impart on him, and it's been really fun to watch him in the car. But it's kind of a microcosm for this team in general. They did a partial season of GT4 competition last year, and look at the expansion that John Farrell-led organization has had. 2 GT4 cars, a pair of TCR cars, and a GT3 car for the first time in their entitled contention right off the bat. I mean, look at how they came out of the gate swinging in Sonoma, winning on their debut weekend. JMF is to be taken seriously.
No doubt about it, and Mackay Stevens has been such a fun story to chronicle. In fact, his youngest brother just made a little mini documentary about Mackay, about 15 minutes long. It's up on YouTube. If you look at Untapped Talent, the story of Mackay Stevens, really recommend it. Super well done, and I learned a couple of things I didn't know about Mackay's journey from it. And it is an unconventional journey to being a race car driver and matching pace with the likes of a Mikael Grenier, who's in the car right now and jumps to 3rd fastest with that lap, about 1/10 of a second off of Maxime Martin's quick time. 3 Mercedes, 1, 2, 3 at the top of the leaderboard. So Mercedes again flexing some muscle as they have all weekend.
Yeah, and Will Power's not far off that leading trio of Mercedes drivers. He just went purple in Sector 3 and is only just, a 1/10 and a half off the fastest time, 3rd in the Pro class in IGTC right now.
Read some quotes from Kenny Hobble about Will's adaptation to this, and Will basically said there's something wrong with the car. It's leaning around a lot. Kenny and Chaz said, no, that's how a GT car drives.
We're running a stiff setup. That's
exactly.
as stiff as it gets, mate. Get used to it.
And he has. He's been up to speed within tenths of, or really fractions of tenths of the really fast guys so far this weekend. This was supposed to happen several years ago at the 24 Hours of Daytona, let's not forget. Will was supposed to drive with Kenny and Sun Energy 1, but Will's wife, Liz, was going through some health issues and he had to pull out last minute. So this has been several years in the making and a perfect venue for the former Indy 500 winner to make his debut.
Yeah, and obviously a huge off-season switch for Will, moving away from Team Penske to Andretti Autosport, so maybe that'll give him a little bit more freedom. I know Roger likes to keep his boys well in check in terms of really focusing on the main champs. Not that others, they haven't had opportunities in other series and other championships, but I think maybe with Andretti we'll see Will Power take on some other sort of one-offs like this.
With performances like this one, the opportunity should open up. He jumps to 2nd, 75 thousandths of a second off of P1.
Well, it's a little bit like when Alex Palou showed up here last year, right? Just the ability, I mean, if you got speed, yes, the car's rolling around a lot more, but he knows this racetrack so well. As you said, 5-time winner on this road course, so it's probably one of the easier tracks to come into and try and drive one of these cars on the limit. You don't have any like blind elevation, big corners to try and really put the car on the ultimate limit through here. It's pretty technical through these infield sectors, so not a huge surprise, but nonetheless, you're going up against the best in the business, some of these factory pilots here this weekend.
I will say this, Palou did have some GT3 experience. He had done Super GT in the GT3 class, GT300 for a year when he was over in Japan. Will Power's only sports car start was a 24-hour race at Bathurst, going on 2 decades ago. These things have changed a little bit in that time. Grenier on another quick lap here. He's improved his time each of the past couple of laps, and he's flirting with it again. Let's see what he does across the yard of bricks. It is no improvement, but again, within fractions of the pace he's already displayed. So consistency not a problem, as you would expect for the Canadian, who has a start on the oval here at Indianapolis on the CV. He made a Freedom 100 start back in his junior open wheel career.
Yeah, he's just 400s off on that lap, 123.35 compared to the 123.31 that he laid down the lap before.
We talked about the pace in the Mercedes AMGs. They occupy the first 4 spots on the timing sheet at the moment. One thing I'm impressed with right now, the number 04 CrowdStrike. Doesn't matter that they had gearbox issues. They are right on the pace, leading in Pro-Am as it stands with a little over an hour to go, but 4th overall, crucially, for one of those IGTC eligible cars. Colin is right on the pace immediately. You would expect this from a team like this. You worry about it sometimes, you know, when you lose that much valuable track time, but coming in and being just over 2/10 off right in the early running, I think is a good sign.
Well, the counterpoint I would give is it's not like they've done a full season of GT World Challenge America this year. We've not seen them with this car since the season opening races at Sonoma. Now, they were quick there. They were up at the front, finished second in both of those races, and the car had the fast lap at both of those races. But it has been a bit of a hiatus as George has focused elsewhere. Did run at Spa in GT3, but has been mostly doing prototype racing this year. So you do wonder a little bit if there's going to take some time to get reacclimated, but any doubts have been put to rest at this point.
Yeah, and I think with this form of competition, with cars being homologated, there's a limit to what teams can do, but obviously we made a switch to a new Pirelli P0 halfway through the year at Road America, so that'll certainly be an adjustment for the team. I'm not sure if they've been out testing with that new tire since that introduction.
That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that one, I confess. It's Turner Motorsport, Robbie Foley, Justin Rothberg. We've told the story a few times last year. They came into this race thinking there was no chance to win the title. Mathematically, it was possible, but it seemed really unlikely, so they hadn't even packed formal wear to the banquet. Had to go do some last-minute shopping when they clinched the title Saturday night on 8-hour weekend a year ago.
I think Justin showed up in a gray suit versus black tie, didn't he?
Yep.
That's all he could find that fit his lanky frame at the last second.
Looked like pulled out of that lap fairly abruptly as he hit the brakes into 12 and got out of the way of some traffic that was making its way through, but it looked like quite an abrupt stop there.
One BMW team to another. Here's Connor Daly, who did the last 3 races of the season last year with Random Vandals Racing, including a podium at Barber, very nearly a race win in Barber Race 2, only an issue with the fueling ultimately cost them the chance to get the victory, but rejoins the team for this event.
Yeah, had a nice chat with Connor here, doing the track preview, so look for that come race day. He knows the racetrack very well, Indiana native. I think 12-time Indy 500 racer now, 5 times he's led the racing, including again this year where the crowd goes absolutely bonkers when Connor takes it to the front. But talking about this car, he said the Evo for me is a lot more in my wheelhouse. He said I had speed last year in this race car, but never really felt comfortable. And he said I got on board with a little bit of testing he's done prior to this weekend and said I feel this race car. So he said that should really bode well for the weekend.
One thing I'm keeping an eye on here with Random Vandals in particular goes back to night practice last night. The number 99 car, that Pro Class entry, 9th in class, 12th overall. The 51 was 3rd overall, with Varun Chasky setting the lap. I had suspicions, and Cal, you would know better than I, that they were maybe splitting strategy last night. It wasn't necessarily an indication of their overall flat-out pace. They were trying to maximize the fact that they have 2 different race cars that they can run 2 different programs on in practice, but I definitely don't think 12th overall is a sign of the pace of the 99, because we've seen how quick they can be.
Yeah, they introduced a new engineer, Marcel is his first name, apologies, I don't know his surname, at the weekend at Barber, and Bill Oberlin especially was like buoyant about how he was able to dial this race car in. And then he got the setup sheet for this weekend. He said, what are you doing? That's the opposite to what we had there. And Marcel said, well, I think you need a different race car here. And so I think the 51 car went in the direction that 99 car had at Barber. Maybe that's something that they can then converge on come qualifying here this afternoon.
Well, I think you have to pull out all the stops when Team WRT shows up on the grid with the driver lineups they have as well, because you obviously want to put in as good of a performance as you can. We know how successful Team WRT has been globally, how successful they've been at this race in the past. You want to pull out all the stops.
You do, and I think there's such an interesting dynamic with people who are in championship contention. So much stress. Whereas you got others, like you talked about, Ryan, earlier, the 120 team coming back, just looking for victory to try and get the overall win versus just the SRO America win here last year. And teams like Colin Brown, George Kurtz coming in to try and win the race. So I think for the 51 squad, they're out of the championship. They're just going all in. Aublin's had a lot of success here, particularly in the GT when we ran GT4 here as well. So he's had a couple of wins, I think maybe 3 wins, in fact, with that. Ooh, it's not good for Rossi.
Second time on this lap, he has gone and mown the lawn for Roger Penske.
I guess he just wants to have 2 wheels on the racetrack.
He would be more at home with that, wouldn't he?
Although it has been so impressive to see how Vale has taken to 4-wheel racing. He's a student of the sport in general, and a lot of times you see high-profile drivers from other categories come in and they'll do different types of racing for fun. He has taken it so seriously and he's been successful. He's won in BMW GT3 machinery. He is still hunting down that elusive first IGTC win, but he's got a heck of a driver lineup to help him try to do it at the 8-hour this weekend.
Hey, Ryan, you'd know this. Hasn't all of his wins come at Mugello?
Yeah.
He's had 3 wins.
Misano. Yeah,
excuse me, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right in front of the home fans.
Yeah.
Of course, very popular. Sister car for WRT is this 777 entry. Alfaisal Al-Zubair, Raffaele Marciello, and the man behind the wheel right now, the Brazilian Augusto Farfus, former Intercontinental GT Challenge champion in his own right. That was back in 2020. So much experience. Raced prototypes here, he's raced GTs here. Just a plug-and-play option for BMW wherever they need him. Right now, that car's shown in 8th, about half a second off of the pace-setting time set by Michael Grenier, but it is the best placed of the BMWs, interestingly. And depending on who you ask, either the BMWs are keeping their powder dry, or maybe they are showing their hand and they don't quite have the outright pace that we might have seen in previous years. And I suppose we'll find out who was telling the truth when we get to the race itself.
Yeah, there's certainly some gamesmanship that goes on. Obviously, you don't need any last-second BOP adjustments if you're a little bit too flavorful in practice.
Always a game to be played when it comes to that. How about the heart of racing? This is the veteran Darren Turner behind the wheel. They were looking for some speed yesterday. Where are they now?
Well, they had a lot of issues with the car yesterday, Ryan, that they're trying to trace. They believed it was coils, which is, talking to one of the team members, says a bit of an Achilles heel with this race car. Saw Darren later in the day. He said, I think we got to the bottom of that. But he said, one thing we're really struggling with here, when we went to this new tire, they were talking to the Pirelli reps about, okay, what is it going to give a race car? And they went down this list, and one by one they think, that's not good for our car, that's not good for our car, that's not good for our car. Then they ran the tire, and it actually made the car better. So that was a nice surprise. But one of the things they're struggling with here, they're kind of peaking the tire pressure up around 2 bar, which is too high for these cars to be effective. There's a minimum coal pressure of 1.3. And so you can't adjust and run it lower to knock over that 2 bar mark. And they're saying with the 1.3 threshold, they're kind of peaking. He said then the car's just sliding around. So we're trying to really figure out a way of calming down the energy in the tire so we get into our sweet spot.
Calvin, if it were you behind the wheel, what are some of the things as a driver you can do to try to mitigate that, and what is up to the engineers to fix and set up?
Well, a lot of it can come, particularly in a race, you got to go, right? You can't just go coolly around the racetrack. In qualifying, you can certainly mitigate that a little bit in terms of like the warm-up phase. As you said, Ryan, no tire warmers now in our championship. So how you go out there, they'd probably want to start as low as you can be, which is 1.3. They'll do some static tests on the race car. They can get a random check on that, so you can't really play with that too much. And then just how you build the tire up. But then it can really come down to, you know what, I can't do like 5 hard laps here. I can do 1, do a cool down, then bring up. In race conditions, that's a problem. There's nothing really you can get around with. Certainly the setup, you can work on some things so you're not really lighting the tire up as quickly. But in terms of driving style, if it starts to slide around a bit, just calm down. You know, if the rears are getting really peaky in terms of the pressure and it starts to slide around a little bit, you just got to calm the car down, maybe make some brake bias adjustments so you're not kind of pinning the nose on entry to a corner, for example. But it's not easy from the driver's seat. It's really more an engineering problem that you need to solve.
A moment ago, we were looking at Jay Schreibman in the second AM class entry, currently down in 24th, joined by Conrad Grunwald this weekend, which is an excellent choice. Great Ferrari experience, carries that bronze ranking, so keeps them eligible in the AM class. Keep an eye on that car when he's in it. Meanwhile, also out of the AF Corsa stable, it is either Marcelo or Christian Hahn in the car at the moment. Alam Kodair is back to form the third leg of that driver lineup. And this is a car that has been quick at times this season, Calvin, but might not have the results to show for it. Problems here for regulator racing. Philip Ellis.
He might have a tire down.
I think
Looks
so
like
too.
The car's kind of leaning.
This is a car that lost a little bit of running time last night in that 30-minute paid bronze session before the start of official night practice. Some door-to-door contact down at turn 1. Took the 91 behind the wall for a little bit. They still did come out. They didn't lose that much time. They still got some track time. They certainly didn't lose as much as the CrowdStrike car did. Philip Ellis brought the car back out. They ran the car through its paces, did their driver change practice, but he is going very, very gingerly. I mean, if there's anyone you want behind the wheel, oh, look at that. Yeah, that front right is down for sure. But Philip Ellis will know how to bring it home without causing any damage to the car.
The good news is you get what's called a joker tire, so if you can prove to Pirelli that it's damaged, this one obviously will be running around like that, you'll get that replaced within your 12-set allocation. You do get an extra set if you make the Super Pole.
How you manage those tires over the course of this weekend is a massive part of the team strategy. Philip Ellis third in points along with Jeff Burton, and joined this weekend by Dan Arrow. The star of GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup last weekend, Alessio Piccarello, back here once again in the States, this time teamed up with RS1 and their season-long championship contending pairing, Jan Heywen and Alex Sedgwick. And I'll tell you, this team, when they heard that Alessio was coming their way, they were pretty excited because they think they've got a star plugged into this team from the Porsche camp.
Well, that'll make 3 stars in this car then, because they got a really stout lineup.
Do indeed.
Jan Heylen pulling double duty this weekend, going to be in the Pirelli GT4 race with Kurt Swearingen, who's chasing after a championship. And Jan coming off another championship in IMSA last weekend.
Right. And that car has been great this year. We've seen RS1 race at the front in GT World Challenge America for several years, and certainly right back to it. I think the only question mark was how quickly would Alex Sedgwick adapt to the GT3 car, and it didn't take him long at all. He's been really, really impressive paired with Heylen, and now Piccarello, who went to the GT World Challenge Endurance Cup Pro title just last weekend, or the overall title, I should say. Sven Muller, Patrick Niederhauser, the other 2 drivers in that car to help take home the championship in dramatic fashion. This is Group M. Lucas Stoltz is driving car 888, and it is a pretty cool livery. We've seen it at Bathurst. We saw it at Suzuka as well. It's they call it interference. That's what the team has dubbed it, and it looks a bit like a television color test slate, and that was in fact the inspiration behind it. But however you term it, the car has been quick all year long in the various championships and series that it's entered. Great to have them back here, adding to the international flavor of the event.
Yeah, kind of a slower start for them in this session. Started now down near the bottom of the order. Lucas Stoltz behind the wheel, though, is very quickly putting in personal best sectors. I don't think they will stay there for long. We know how quick Luca can be behind the wheel, and he's very comfortable in that 888. We've seen the pace of the Mercedes. I think looking overall, it looks at the moment, still early in the weekend, still early even in pre-qualifying with a little under an hour to go, to be a battle of the German giants this weekend. We've seen BMW with pace, Mercedes at the moment occupying the first 4 spots on the timing sheets, but Porsche, I think, is starting to show some pace as the weekend goes on as well.
And Terrace Hours running with Wright Motorsports aboard this number 10 machine here this weekend, trying to follow up on his Independent Cup Championship win here last year. They also started from the pole with Patrick Niederhauser with a different team, the Swiss driver. Put in a storming lap there in the Super Pole, kind of surprised me anyway. I'm not surprised everyone who knows his talent, but that was quite a highlight to start the weekend for them, and they eventually came through and scored enough points to grab that championship for Antares. And Terrace had really good pace this year. Talking to a couple of people who know the paddock a bit better than I do in the IGTC, said he seems to really have upped his game.
Yeah, he's been great. Won the bronze class at Suzuka last month. Saw them at Spa as well. And it's the same lineup from a year ago at the Indy 8 Hour as well. Different team, as you mentioned. It was Herbert last year, getting a chance to sample Wright Motorsports this year, but Antares is back once again alongside Luke Hartog and Patrick Niederhauser. I think Hartog had a bit of a coming out party in this race last year, where he announced himself as a GT3 driver to reckon with for years to come.
Yeah, he's a super talent. Incredible. Going to be interesting to see how far he goes. I think all the way, that is for sure.
He's had a busy year as Hartog as well. He's, I can't even count. I'd run out of fingers the amount of races he's done, the amount of Porsches he's been in. Maybe not a straightforward path on the Porsche pyramid. You know, an article on Sports Car 365 was kind of chronicling some of the things that he's done. But boy, he has had a lot of seat time this year, and it's paying off. I think with his announcement in the performance last year, he has only built on that going forward.
Well, he was one of just a handful of drivers to do the 3 24-hour races back to back to back with Le Mans, Nürburgring, and Spa, and he was the only one of those that did it that was not a factory driver. So, you know, that speaks to how in demand he is, that teams are calling his number to put him in the car for those big races. A look here at Schwest Povolato Racing. First year for them in the Corvette, and it's been an upward trajectory, helped, I would say, this weekend by the fact they've got factory ace Nicky Katzberg as part of the driver lineup.
Yeah, he did a test with them recently, and he says it's a great little team. Looking forward to working with them this weekend. He obviously has had recent experience aboard a similar car running here just a few weeks ago in the IMSA Championship, so that'll be a great notebook that he can bring with him. And you know, when you bring in these factory aces who drive the cars every single weekend, you could think, oh, we're kind of getting it dialed in, and they can just take you to a whole new level. So I think from his speed behind the wheel, and I would assume he'd be finishing the race, but also just technically helping the engineers understand the car a little bit better, is a big shot in the arm for that group.
And he's had the chance to drive the Corvette for a few different teams this year, including finishing on the podium at Suzuka in the race, the 1,000-kilometer race there last month, joined by Alexander Sims and Scott McLaughlin. Mackay Stevens in the quickest car at the moment, car 34 for JMF. Amanda Busick has caught up with Mackay's co-driver.
Well, Mikkel, the Mercedes is looking pretty strong here already in pre-qualifying. We all know the point situation coming in. How can you guys hold that Random Vandals BMW accountable tomorrow?
Well, I think we have to focus on our own race, not think about what they're doing. Obviously, we can only control ourselves and try to win it, and then hopefully they finish third. Because that's the only way we can win the championship, is that if we win and they finish third, so we need a car in between us. So far it's going well. It's also not that easy to keep the tire in the window with the cold condition. Also at night it will be quite tricky with the tires, but yeah, we'll see tomorrow.
You were telling me off camera that you and Lucas Auer have experience racing in other races, so he joins the team this weekend. And I said, Mackay Stevens must be eating this up, and you told me that he's a little nervous. How are you calming him down?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just telling him he did a nice job all year. He's improved a lot. He's always a bit stressed with qualifying, but in the end we just need a good average to be in the Super Bowl, so he doesn't have to stress too much. He's never done really any mistakes, so he only has to, you know, keep it on track. I'm sure we'll have a good car. We're trying to have a good car. Then we'll see tomorrow night.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Ryan Calvin, Jonathan, you can only imagine like the words of wisdom that Mackay has woken up and said to him. I just absolutely love this opportunity for him.
Yeah, the ever philosophical Mackay Stevens, I'm sure, has maybe uttered a few sentences that Nick Renier has never heard a racing driver say before. But that's what we love about Mackay. He is a deep thinker, and certainly a cut apart from just about any other race car driver that you'll ever talk to. The goal for them is simple. They have to win. If they don't win, there's no chance to win the championship. So with that in mind, it almost simplifies the process, doesn't it? When you don't have to go through the different permutations, you know there's one goal, and it happens to be the goal that everybody would like to accomplish at the end of the day anyway.
Oh, exactly, Ryan. In a way, it's almost a double-edged sword, right? You know the target going in. You've got to win. Like you said, it's as simple as that. And on one hand, that's a lot of pressure, right? Because it's a singular goal. There's no margin for error. But on the other side, you've got nothing to lose. This is your first year of GT3 racing. It's gone remarkably. However Saturday's race goes, I think they can leave Indianapolis with their heads held very, very high. Of course, they would like to have their heads held high and take home some championship hardware as well. I think that would make the flights home that much sweeter. But at the moment, the 34 car with Mackay Stevens behind the wheel is fastest in the session with just under 50 minutes to go.
And I spoke to team president there, Danny Koch, the other day, and he said that Lucas comes in here, that is, the third driver on board this weekend, with the just missed out on the DTM title, just missed out on the GT World Challenge title over in Europe. So he comes in here and he wants to win. He wants to put those two disappointments behind him and is out to prove a point, I think, this weekend.
Well, I think there's a couple drivers in that lineup as well with a point to prove. Mackay Stevens, I think I had a chance to talk to him early in the season. He said his long-term goal, he wants to be an AMG factory driver. He's trying to absorb as much as he can from his teammates. Mikhail has obviously been a massive resource to him. Mikhail has said Mackay has just been a sponge. He's taken in so much information and applied it in a really positive way. When you have the opportunity as someone like a Mackay Stevens to drive in an endurance race like this and learn from some of the best in the business, what a great chance to be able to prove yourself on a pretty big stage.
There may be an added incentive for Mackay this weekend. There's actually a pro driver championship if you run for Mercedes AMG. They have like a global scale that they put together, and my understanding is Mackay could win that if he should get a victory here tomorrow night. And with that title comes a brand new road car, not a loaner. It's yours to keep. So that's a pretty nice little bit of bling at the end of the year.
It's a good incentive for sure. This is a driver who has become synonymous with Mercedes AMG, although does some prototype racing for Alpine. But Jules Gounon, who was a late arrival in Indianapolis, was doing some tire testing in Europe, got here just in time to run in the night practice last night and set the fastest time in that night practice by 74 thousandths of a second. He's here with the Lone Star Racing team, Maxime Martin, who we talked about earlier, and then the Dutchman, Lynn Hodenius, who could be a star in the making. He was here a month ago when IMSA was in Indianapolis and was incredibly quick in that car despite not having been to the States, not having been on that tire, et cetera, et cetera. And now he's back with the same team, same track, different tire, but again, he's been really quick, and I've been super impressed with him in his transition this year from single-seaters to GTs.
I couldn't agree more, and I was really impressed with them in night practice as well. They were fastest last night. Something actually, a note that our DJ Clark picked up from the PA booth, they spent a lot of time doing driver change practice at the end of the session, and that tends to be an indication that you've got the car where you want it. If you have the bandwidth to be able to come in, they swap drivers probably 5 or 6 times towards the end of the session. You only do that, I would assume, if you have the car in the sweet spot where you want it to be. It looked like they had found the pace. They jumped to the top of the timing sheets early and had the bandwidth to be able to practice some of the procedural things on pit lane, and that is so, so valuable in a race like this at the Indy 8 Hour, where you're going to be making a lot of pit stops and making a lot of driver changes.
I would add to that, it's 3 drivers that are Mercedes affiliated, but they have not driven together at all this year in any championship. Okay. So that would be at least the 3 of them together. Maxime and Lynn have, but okay, to have this 3 as a group, that has not happened. Yeah. And for Jules in particular, you know, these are 2 co-drivers he's not worked with this season up to this point.
I think the Lynn coming back here, he qualified 3rd here a few weeks ago at the IMSA round, so he got up to speed incredibly quickly, kind of burst onto the scene, and as a young silver driver, I mean, he is really making a big statement. He's going to be sought after. Let's make that point moving forward. That is for absolute certainty.
Well, one of the unique features of sports car racing and endurance racing in general is the fact that you have multiple co-drivers, but it is an added challenge if you haven't driven with them before. You know, Cal, you've had teammates in the past. How important is it to A, gel with them, and B, be able to get that rhythm down before you get into race conditions, be able to execute the driver changes, you know, perfectly, and get those little tweaks ironed out before you take the race start?
Well, Well, I think in sports car racing, you have to be willing to compromise a little bit, whether it's the seat, the ergonomics inside the cockpit, have something that everyone's okay with that may not be 100% perfect, or try and get it in everyone's sort of range where you can operate the race car. But I think the most important thing is just the setup on a car. I mean, every driver likes something a little bit different, and if you can find the chemistry with co-drivers who like the same race car, so the engineer is not trying to, it's like buying a house, do you know what I mean? And it's like your wife wants one thing and you want something else, and for the real estate agent, it's like a problem. Well, an engineer is the same. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, well, this driver doesn't like too much on the nose in the corner, where this guy can't drive it. Do you know what I mean? If it's got understeer. So those are the things that you really have to work around, and ideally you like the same balance in a race car. I think that's really the key to success in one of these events, because there's some tweaks you can make during driver changes and different tire pressure starting points and some subtle adjustments you can make from inside the cockpit, but ideally you need the same basic setup that works for all three drivers.
Halfway through pre-qualifying, it was a bit late getting started. Barrier repair necessitated that after an incident in GT America qualifying, the session that immediately preceded this. But since we've been up and running, it has been fast and furious. Right now, though, the pit lane a busy place, with a good chunk of the field actually shown stationary in the pits, which makes it a really valuable time to be out on track for those who don't have to contend with too much traffic. Watching Dustin Blattner right now in the blue Porsche. That car shown 18th in the overall order, but 8th in the very competitive Pro-Am class, which, as ever, has drawn a massive entry. I think we touched on this off the top, but it's worth reiterating. There's been a change from last year in the way that the Pro class is constituted. Last year, they were separate Intercontinental GT Challenge and GT World Challenge America Pro classes, because in the American Championship, you're required to carry a silver graded driver or below as part of the lineup. This year that's been consolidated, and every lineup must carry a silver or a bronze as part of their driver lineup in the pro class. And that opens up the door for people like Lynn Hodanius, for instance, to be a part of this race, and puts a fast and experienced silver, well, experienced isn't the right term, but he's driven a lot of Mercedes this year, in high demand for a seat in this race.
Well, and if the rule change hadn't been there, I doubt we'd have seen Rossi competing here this
True.
weekend.
Great
so this
point.
is massive.
What it opens up a lot too, I think, you know, the silver driver categorization is one of my favorite because it is so broad. You have such a breadth of talent and experience levels. You know, when you know the powers that be and brighter minds than mine have to decide who gets what ranking, but it does open up a lot. There are a lot of really capable silvers. You have, you know, guys and girls all across the spectrum, from people who have just been upgraded from bronze to what you would consider a super silver, someone on the fringe of a gold ranking. But that gives you a lot of flexibility as a racing team, especially when you're trying to put together a lineup like you have for the pro classes.
It's been a good year for Dustin Blattner. To bring the focus back to this car, won the GT World Challenge Europe combined sprint and endurance championship. It's the overall, I suppose, but in the bronze class this year. Also won both the endurance and sprint titles in the bronze class this season, and picked up a class win in the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa too. So I'd say by any measure, 2025's been good to the American, who's done much of his racing overseas to this point.
And how special would it be to cap off the season with a win on home soil as well?
No question. That would be a big accomplishment for anyone to win at the Brickyard, but I suspect especially for an American to win the American round of Intercontinental GT Challenge. He actually got his season started at the 24 Hours of Dubai, finishing on the podium there with a couple of drivers that are here this weekend: Blake McDonald, Patrick Liddy, and Matt Bell. Patrick Liddy racing in McLaren Trophy, but the other two are competitors here this weekend.
Blake McDonald, I think a great chance to talk about him as well, has been a bit of a revelation in GT3 racing. I think his development and progression has been so impressive. You know, this is his first year of real consistent, meaningful, lengthy seat time behind the wheel of a GT3 car. He'd done some stuff in years past, but the way he has burst onto the scene has been so impressive. Of course, when you have Matt Bell as a driver coach, that makes that a little bit easier, but you've got to be able to get in the car and execute. He has taken it seriously. He has made it a point that he has aspirations and lofty aspirations at that in the world of sports car racing, and I'd say he's well on his way. At the moment he sits in that DXDT Racing Corvette, they are 4th in Pro-Am, 12th overall, but Blake has been a real treat to watch in SRO competition.
Yeah, and I think he's managed by Ollie Gavin, longtime Corvette Racing factory driver. I think for DXDT, coming off that brilliant season last year where they started the season late, but then won 8 races on the trot with Tommy Milner and Alec Udell. They obviously had a great notebook to work from moving into this championship season, starting the year on a similar tire, so should have been able to cut and paste a lot of the notes that they had and engineering notes coming into these race weekends. I would say, however, that Indianapolis was the one race where they really struggled last year. I think it was more down to maybe a BOP, sort of like was a little bit off. They didn't really have any straightaway speed here to fight with, but nonetheless, it was incredible how they just took that car in and just immediately had success and just couldn't stop winning, essentially.
Yeah, especially with the pro entry. Blake ran this race last year in their Pro-Am entry. Interestingly enough, finished 6th in class. As far as the way the season has gone, you have to wonder what might have been if Sonoma hadn't gone so disastrously for them. They finished 12th and 10th, he and Matt Bell, in the first 2 races of the year. Since then, they've not finished off the podium, but they dug a big hole and consequently come in 2nd in points.
Yeah, it's tight though. As we mentioned earlier, I think Justin Rothberg getting that penalty late in the going really took away that little comfort factor that they had, and that's really put the Turner Motorsports boys and girls on their toes a little bit. They got to pay attention. They need a really, really solid weekend. Spoke to Patrick Gallagher yesterday when I was leaving the track, and he said, I'm feeling the stress. He said, I just don't want to mess this up for Robbie and Justin. So he's got a lot of experience as Robbie's regular partner in IMSA, so he'll be up to the task. But yeah, they recognize that if that 11 car wins, they've got to be right behind them, and that Pro-Am field is deep, particularly when you get to the end where you get your AM drivers rotated through the car early, and you got like guys like Philip Ellis that you're going up against.
Yeah.
It could really be a tight one here,
well,
come 8:30 or whatever it is for the checkered flag here on Saturday.
The good news is they've been in this position going into the final weekend with a shot at the title before, and it was the same lineup last year. Patrick Gallagher was in this role where he had to play, you know, second fiddle effectively and make sure that he was doing his part to make the season-long pairing come home with the title. So maybe he is feeling a little bit anxious about it, but he can take heart in the fact that they've done it before.
Yeah, for sure. You just got to lean on the experience, trust your instincts. I think Robbie Foley is just such a steady influence within that whole group, not just the drivers, but the whole team. I think he has a really unbelievable leadership role there for Will Turner and the whole group. So he'll certainly talk those boys through the moments that they'll start to feel it a little bit, whether it's prior to getting in the race car or during engineering debriefs or whatever. So I think they've got all the tools in place, but it's going to be a great battle.
Yeah, Robbie brings so much to the equation. He's a mechanical engineering degree holder from Auburn University. What might have been, I mean, he was an excellent high school athlete, was a high school football player, but suffered a really significant leg injury that ended his football career, and it was from that he ended up homeschooled as he was recovering from that. Made a deal with his parents, basically, hey, if my grades are good, can I go do a racing school? And the rest is history.
Yeah, and he was under the mentorship of Bill Auberlen for many years, and now he's kind of doing a similar role with Justin Rothberg.
Yeah.
And others. He's done it in the past, Michael Dynan and various other co-drivers along the way. Patrick Gallagher now as well, of course.
Rothberg's really spread his wings. First in sports car racing, coming through Ferrari Challenge, then into this paddock a year ago where he burst onto the scene. But just a few weeks ago, he was trying the stock car thing. He made an ARCA start at Toledo. How about that?
I love it. I'd love to see the variety, especially this, you know, early on relatively in your career, to go ahead and say, why not? Let's try some new things. Of course, he's making a name for himself and still continuing to do so with BMW, with the world of sports car racing. I think he's really found a home here with Turner, and it's been really good for him, of course, under the tutelage of Robbie Foley. What a guy to learn from as well. With all the accolades you just mentioned, one of the brightest minds in the paddock and a heck of a wheelman. But Justin, and the season he's had in 2025 has been really, really special to watch. I think he's someone, safe to say, is going to be in sports car racing for a long time. I think he's got a long and very successful career ahead of him. I'm really excited to see what he can do in the future, but I'm excited to see what he can do in this race as well. Like you mentioned, in the end of a race, I don't know what his drive time is going to look like, Calvin. You might be a better insight to this than I, if he's going to do more on the front end, more in the middle, more in the end. But I'm curious to see what he can do, what his stint times will be, because he's been really impressive over the course of the season.
Yeah, there's no minimum drive time. There's a maximum of 3 hours, 15 minutes. So if 2 of your drivers do that, you cut the pie up and you got basically an hour and 30 left, which is shy of 2 full stints. 65 minutes is the maximum stint time. So I would anticipate them starting Justin and knocking out his double at the beginning. I think that simplifies the day for them. They also have, and we try not to like harp on this, but because of Justin being a derogated bronze and with his performance early in the year, they now carry 29 kilos of weight, coincidentally, car number 29. But that's 70-odd pounds, and that makes quite a difference performance-wise. So when you look at the performance of Foley in qualifying, he carries that around. They don't take it in and out of the car. You can't take it out during a driver change. So he has to carry that weight. They also now have to spend 5 seconds longer during the pit stops if Justin's been in the car. So that's going to be significant over the first 2 stints. But I think they'll get that out of the way. I think because of that, they can't afford to have Justin in the car later and get that 5-second additional time added to them if they're suddenly in a battle and loses them track position.
Well, that will be a story to keep an eye on, especially early in the race when we see Justin in the car. Right now, we've got a chance to head down to DJ Clark, who's taking over in the pits for us.
Well, it's good to talk to you, Ryan. I've been able to catch up with Team Group M with Tom Carlander here. Tom, it's your first time here in Indianapolis. This place is so special, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I really enjoy driving here. The track is just mega. And also it's my first time in America, which is also great.
I didn't know it was your first time in the States as well. That's fantastic. Let's turn our attention to the race itself a little bit. It really looks like these Mercedes are the cars to beat here. How are you finding the track, and how are you finding the Mercedes being able to get around here?
Yeah, it looks quite promising. The Mercedes are really strong here, at least in training sessions. Let's see in qualifying, but I feel pretty confident.
What's the hardest part about this circuit? It does present quite a few challenges to a driver.
There's a lot of dust and pickup lying on the track, so if you once leave the ideal line, yeah, you have the pickup and dust on the tires, which is just not good.
All right, dust on the tires. That's a storyline we'll be following. Tom, thank you so much. We'll let you get back to it.
Thank you.
Good to hear from Tom Callander, last year's ADAC GT Masters champion, alongside Elias Sepinen, who actually was in this race last year, if you recall. He drove with Jeff Burton and Philip Ellis and was pretty impressive. Those two teamed up last year to win the GT Masters title. This year, he's been busy in GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup. He ran at Spa. He's done some Super Taikyu racing over in Japan as well in a Mercedes, and also has done some racing at DTM, finished 3rd in the rookie standings this year.
I think Tom was 16 when he won the youngest ever ADAC GT champion of no I read, so if that's correct, that's an amazing stat.
Well, that would be about right. Let me do some math on that. Yeah, he would be now 17, so I think you're right. A year ago, he would have been 16. Yeah, he was supported out of karting, actually, by the German Federation, by ADAC, and went to French F4, but after a year there, turned the focus to sports cars. And the amazing thing is, that was his first year racing in tin tops, and he won a GT Masters championship. Admittedly, GT Masters isn't quite what it was. The strength of the field is diminished somewhat by rules and the driver lineup regulations. But nevertheless, to come away with the title in your first year is no small feat.
Yeah, and he's being fast track. He ran DTM this year. I think his best result is in the season finale at Hockenheim P5. So that is a tough crowd over there. If you're running top 5 in that group, that is a recognition of his speed and talent.
Didn't get to see the finish at the Spa 24. Whoa.
Car coming in there a little bit lively.
That is Alfred Rennauer. We've got both Rennauer brothers in the race in separate cars. Herbert Motorsport is the Rennauer family business. Good to see both on the grid here.
And I talk about that when you're coming into a couple of these break zones, like in turn 12, like down into turn 1, where the track continues around the speedway. I was never a driver who kind of brake by a marker, like a crack in the track or a signboard. I always did it by depth perception to the corner. That was just the kind of the way I drove. And sometimes you can kind of come in there if there's cars in front of you, and you can kind of get a little bit disoriented. Obviously, the great guys don't make mistakes like that, but it's easily done. And I talked about, you know, if you're suddenly driver's right come down that front straight, or you're not looking to the left to see where do I hit the brakes at the last moment. Then you really got to judge where that apex curb is maybe and look for something different. So I think for drivers who don't have a ton of experience here at Indy, is one thing that can catch you out.
Well, I'm sure that's only compounded at night as well, Calvin, as you lose some of the visual senses and you have to change how you think and approach the corners. But I want to go back to something that Tom said to DJ. He said it's dusty out there. We've seen it in some of the larger overhead shots, kicking up dust if cars have gone just a little bit, a few millimeters offline. How difficult is that to try to get a clean lap together, especially when there might be some slippery stuff on the surface in pre-qualifying?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever known anything that Roger Penske owns to be called dusty. I remember watching Roger instruct one of their mechanics with a lint roller on the front, like the upper dash part of a GTP machine, get that thing cleaned off. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of cars running around here, certainly in terms of, you know, it's pretty dry, so if cars are dropping wheels, you can see through there is almost like a brown that you can see on the racetrack where the dust does settle, and it makes it really tricky when you're trying to make a move around the outside. You've really got to work a driver over. You really got to try and manipulate the lines coming through that infield to try and get around the outside, and typically you're not going to be on the racing line or on the grippier part of the racetrack when you're finally getting into that brake zone or trying to finish off the deal. So yeah, it's tricky. You know, we talk about rain here on race day potentially, but nonetheless, you tell me, Ryan, how much rain have you had here in Indy the last few days?
It's been a little while, I have to say. And I was out of town over the weekend, but it's not rained since I've been back, let's put it that way. And
see it right there, just even getting close to it, just the exhaust and stuff. You don't even have to drop wheels in it. It's like the exhaust can literally puff the dust up and that'll land back on the racetrack.
the grounds here, though, are extremely well maintained. They always have been, but especially since Roger Penske took ownership back in 2020, there's an adjoining golf course, the Brickyard Crossing, several holes of which actually are on the infield of the circuit, but it's the same grounds crew that looks after the grass inside the track as well as on the golf course, and it's never looked better than in the last 5 years since the Penske family took ownership from the Holman George family, which had been stewards of the facility since 1946.
When you could tell, this is one of the better manicured racing facilities anywhere in the world. I mean, everything is Penske perfect, as you would expect under Roger's stewardship. It's a stunning facility. The facilities that we get to work in are beautiful. The media center is one of the best in the business, and out on track, I imagine it's got to be a joy to drive because it certainly looks the part.
Yeah, it is absolutely gorgeous. There's a look from overhead. Of course, when this was built, you can see the skyline of Indianapolis off in the distance. This was all farmland when it was dreamed up in the early part of the 20th century. The founders of the facility recognized that there really weren't roads on the same level in the United States that there were in Europe, and that was giving the automotive manufacturers in Europe an advantage over the domestic American manufacturers, and so they dreamed up a testing facility. Originally, it was conceived to be a 5-mile oval. That was quickly talked down to 2.5 miles, as you see, and an infield road course was always part of the planning, but it took until 2000 for the road course actually to be implemented here at the Speedway, first for Formula One, and MotoGP followed. Now sports cars, NASCAR has used it, IndyCar, of course, has used it. Club level racing has been here, including the SCCA runoffs, which is the national championships for amateur road racing in the U.S. So it's been used for a whole lot more, which is in great contrast to the history of the place, because from 1911 all the way through 1994, which was the first Brickyard 400. Up until that point, only one event was held here every year, and that was the Indy 500.
And Jonathan, have you ever shared a booth before with an Indy winner?
I have not.
Yeah,
no.
You're looking at one right there.
Yeah. Pride of my rather minuscule racing career, but yes, at a very, very low level, did win my class here on the IMS road course.
I assume there's a photo of you kissing the brick somewhere in your office.
Oh, it is on my phone.
Yeah, tattooed.
I would hope so.
Yeah, it is all over the place. I was joined by Clark Camburn, who's Apex broadcast crew is providing all of the camera operators, etc. He was one of my co-drivers and my dad. Very memorable day, to say the least.
Only fitting, then that's the crew we have here around IMS. And hey, a win at IMS is a win at IMS. I don't think it matters what it's in. If I were to win in just about anything here, I would never shut up about it. And as I think would be the case if anyone who is able to be victorious in any of the classes here, either in the Indy 8-hour for IGTC and GT World Challenge America powered by AWS, but any of the Brilliant Support Series we've got on track this weekend too.
It is special. Everyone who comes here knows it. You get the sense when you drive through the gates, go under the tunnel or through the tunnel under the track. The museum here, since its renovation, is second to none. Wholeheartedly recommend anyone who comes to Indianapolis to stop by the track and check out the museum. It reopened in April after being closed for about a year for renovations, and it is absolutely stunning. And that's not just about IndyCar racing. Sports cars have a presence there as well, because this has become a big part of the event's identity, or the facility's identity in recent years, hosting world-class sports car racing. And it really started, as far as endurance racing goes, with this event, when it shifted from Laguna Seca to Indianapolis over half a decade ago now. This has become a fixture on the IGTC calendar.
Tell you what, watching Lucas Auer wrestle that race car around there, I'm not sure if they're on tires that are a little bit more worn or whether that's just his driving style, but he is in full attack mode right now.
Yeah, look at the hands sawing at the steering wheel, Calvin. I'm curious what that's like to, I think you said muscling it around. I think it's aptly so, because he certainly looks like it from the pictures we're seeing here.
Yeah, I mean, these cars do have power steering, so those steering inputs, you're not like physically that demanding, but even so, I would guess that maybe the tires are maybe a little bit past their prime, and he's just trying to see what he can eke out of it lap time-wise with those on there.
It's valuable data as well, because late in the race, you're not always going to have ideal tires in the car. It's an 8-hour race. You're going to have to do a lot of running on Pirelli tires that have gone the distance. You know, how valuable is it to get some of that data before you get to race conditions?
I think it can be important. I mean, I'm not sure a team would do this, elect to do this, but the way the race cuts up, if you got a clean race, and there'll obviously be yellows that resets the clock in terms of back timing to the checkered flag, but if you look at 65-minute stints and you did 5 of those, you'd be at 5 hours 25. So there'd only be 35 minutes potentially in one stint. So if you're a little bit deeper into that with some yellows eating up the clock, pit stops eating into that, you know, maybe you'd elect, depending on how cool it gets here at the end, could you maybe not take tires? You have an immediate outlap advantage, something like that. So yeah, you'd be thinking, oh, once the tires are done 65 minutes, we're not going to need them anymore. But maybe there's a chance that you'll do a stint and a bit with the same set of tires.
Keeping our eyes on the crowd strike by Riley Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo. It's Toby Sowery in the car right now, and maybe making his way to the pit lane, or at least backing off. It looks like maybe to create a little bit of space. Toby has driven with George Kurtz quite a bit in LMP2 competition here in the States over the last few years, part of the endurance lineup in IMSA, and has some GT experience, mostly in BMWs over the last few years in Europe, but he's a really quick shoe. Made a handful of IndyCar starts last year and opened some eyes with his performance for a smaller team, Dale Coyne Racing. And then this year spent the year as a reserve driver in IndyCar for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, which was in the news recently, having tested earlier this week Mick Schumacher here on the Indy Road Course.
Yeah, that's a cool story. We'll see where that one goes. But yeah, certainly Mick seems to be maybe turning his attention to other options outside of Formula One and the World Endurance Championship that he's recently competed in. You'd probably know Toby from Indy Next as well, right?
Correct, yeah. He actually is another one that has made a start on the oval before. He did the last Freedom 100 in 2019 and did several seasons in what is now Indy Next. It was Indy Lights at the time. Won a race and ran at the front, several podium finishes. Never quite was with the right team at the right time. And I'm not sure he's totally shut the door on trying to get into a single-seater, but if he decides to focus on sports cars, he's had some eye-popping performances over the past few years in limited opportunities.
And just recently, those new driver gradings came out for 2026, and I think he was one of the drivers who kept his silver status. So
that helps.
That's really handy.
It does open up so many opportunities for you in the world of sports car racing, especially in GT racing. I think IGTC is a great example of that.
This is a car here with Adrian De Silva driving that had an incident yesterday during one of the test sessions, so good to see the car has been rebuilt.
Had a chance to swing by the garage and just take a visual look at the car a couple hours after the crash, and it looked almost, I think, worse in the pictures than it did. I think the barriers may have suffered a little bit worse than the car did. Testament to Porsche and the 911 GT3R that they've built. These things are so modular. You can see the clip right there just below the headlights. These things come apart and go back together almost like Legos. It's pretty remarkable. In an endurance race, speed is the name of the game, and changing components out quickly between sessions, in session is so important, as we see some changes happening right now on the Lone Star car. The mechanics are working on the right front. They're getting in there, and they're changing more than just the tires. I see a brake rotor going in. Yeah, they're changing pads there, or pads and rotors for that point. That matter. It's not something that you anticipate doing during an 8-hour race. These GT3 cars are now geared up to get through a 24-hour race with just one pad and rotor change, but it's all done very, very quickly. Quick release lines. That might have been indicative of an issue. I don't know that would have been part of the pre-qualifying program to change both of the front rotors. As we see someone else, the 32, it's not the part of the track you want to be on, but he's now back on the Blackstone. However, having said that, with just 20 minutes to go, if you think, we need fresher brakes on to get through the 8-hour race, we don't want to be messing with them during the qualifying session. So, let's run the old set as far as we can, get them on now, make sure there's no issues with them, make sure the balance is good and all of the pressures are there. So that might be part of their routine, just rather than putting them on prior to this session and putting another 90 minutes on the same set, they'll be even fresher, and you then don't run the risk of putting them on for qualifying here later in the day, or even for the race itself overnight.
It was Kyle Washington, by the way, that was using the runoff down in turn 1, which could have been by design. Sometimes drivers will test that to make sure they know which way to go. That actually caught someone out here in the IMSA weekend in September.
It did, and yeah, I think they've tried to make it almost not gain time, but you didn't lose any by running down through there if you got through there quickly. And
that was not on purpose, though.
Yeah.
He had that thing sideways.
Yeah, but you can get through here pretty quick, and particularly at night, it's hard to find. So if I was a team manager, I'd be sending all of my drivers down there. You run the risk there could be a bit of debris. You certainly don't want to puncture or damage a tire by doing so, but I'd want all of my drivers to know exactly. You don't want to come down there and then suddenly try to figure out where do I go. So take a little route down there during one of the practice sessions. Make sure you know what you're doing. And if it was me, I'd be finding, okay, where's the latest I can brake for turn 1 and not make the apex, but then go through the the cutoff. Could be an advantage. Who knows?
Back-to-back podiums for Washington. Finished 3rd and 2nd in the 2 races at Barber Motorsports Park. Joined, as always, by Tom Sargent, but for this weekend by the Rapid Klaus Bachler. It's a great addition to any lineup. Here's Will Power, looking right at home in just his 2nd day behind the wheel of a GT3 car.
That was awkward.
It was, and it tends to be down in the chicane. That's turns 5 and 6 leading on to this straightaway known as Holman Boulevard.
Yeah, Coleman then just trying to get up to speed, and you can't hit the disappear button, so he was trying to figure out the language of whether Will Power's going to stuff it down the inside. At the same time, Will Power's trying to figure out what is going to happen. That's one of the challenges with sports car racing, different levels and speeds, obviously, through the field, and the fact that it can change within a couple of minutes. You can pass that same car and, oh boy, he's in front of me again. Well, now it's a different driver, does something completely different in terms of their braking point, where they turn into a corner and things like that. So that's one of the challenges that really keeps you on your toes.
And compounding that in an event like this, where you have people coming from all over the world that aren't used to racing one another, even if the team says to Todd, hey, it's Will Power behind you. It's not like Todd's ever shared the track with Will before, so they're all kind of learning each other's tendencies on the fly.
Yeah, and some drivers can tend to be super aggressive, and you want to know, who is that? He's going to come through. Do you know what I mean? He's like Santa's bright yellow helmet. You see that? Or Michael Andretti, for example.
Speaking from experience with Ayrton's helmet?
Yeah, well, typically I was following it, but occasionally he was behind me. But yeah, you just know that if there's a crack, Max Verstappen, pick a name, who are just like some of the most aggressive drivers in terms of seeing a crack and going for it.
Well, this has been awesome for the second year in a row to get to see an active IndyCar legend, champion, Indy 500 winner in the case of Power. Below is now, but he wasn't last year. Getting to try this really for the first time, or the first time at this level, and watching that adaptation in real time. It didn't take long, as you would expect a world-class talent like Will Power to be able to jump into this car and go quick on the fly.
You could even see there, he was attacking the curves, but his hands were much calmer than we saw from Lucas Auer just a few moments ago in a similar Mercedes.
You said attack, Ryan, and I think attack he did. That was a pretty unbelievable save there. Another unbelievable save, my goodness.
It's Luke Hartog. There is a dirt track inside the facility. It's not there, but Luke would be right at home, I think, based on that car control.
And that's why that track is getting dirty, because drivers are doing that all the way around in the...
It seems like there's been a lot of drivers maximum attack in the last couple of minutes here. Is it everybody just trying to find those few extra hundredths, tenths in the last 15 minutes and some change?
Yeah, probably, and I would think, I mean, you obviously got to work with that tire allocation. You don't want to burn them up. There may be a sim qualifying run going on for at least one of the pilots here, just to give a setup direction for this afternoon's qualifying session. When we get to that, 3 segments, 15 minutes per driver. All of the drivers have to run a new set of Pirelli P0s, and then there's a 4th set that they will run if they make the Super Pole, which is then taken away, so you get an extra set. Those are replaced for race day. So just because you do that extra session and qualify for that, you're not at a disadvantage come race time.
Big slide for Jeff Burton in the Burton Lumber-sponsored Mercedes Regulator Racing, a cousin team, if you will, to DXDT Racing. Jeff having a career year, 3 wins, including 2 overall victories, paired with Philip Ellis using the reverse strategy all season long, and it has netted them some big-time results. In addition to those wins, they've been runner-up on a couple of occasions, enter the weekend 3rd in points. It has been awesome watching them do something different, and credit to them. They've been able to take advantage of the regulations over the last couple of years, and it's earned them some big-time hardware.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been really fun to watch. I know the format for GT World Challenge America is changing next year, and I think it's a really great idea from SRO America to do that. But it's been fun to watch Regulator Racing do something different in a race format where strategy is not all that flexible, and it's paid off for them. And I think it's been really fun to watch. We've seen other teams try to follow suit and do similar things, but the 91 crew, the ones that kind of piloted the way there.
And they were the early adopters, weren't they? A few others have dabbled with it, but they've been committed since Sonoma last year, having Jeff start the race up against the pros and Philip up against the AMs.
And a great young teammate they got drafted in here for this weekend, silver-rated Dan Arrow, Dutch kid, just 22 years old, met him for the first time yesterday. Such a bubbly personality, great story. Does not come from a motorsports family in any way. And he actually went to a track day, I believe it was in a Ford Fiesta. He's 13 years old, and a lot of drivers were there to try and get their official racing license, but you had to be 15. Well, he's a tall young lad, and they thought, oh, he's got to be old enough, so they gave him a license, which he then went and raced with and campaigned. And then they realized, boy, he's 2 years too young. It's basically illegal to be driving. So kind of a fun personality as we see another brake change going on here. So maybe kind of the routine that we're seeing here, Jonathan, that we discussed earlier about maybe some of these teams electing to do that right before we get into the qualifying sessions here this afternoon. But
yeah, exactly, Calvin. It's the second AMG that we've seen pictures of, that we have evidence of. I don't know if anyone else has elected to do that, but that's the second Mercedes we've seen do front brake changes in this session.
Yeah, and you see those massive kind of forks that go in there with a big long handle, so you got some leverage. That's just pushing the pistons back into the caliper itself, so you then got space to put in fresh pads that obviously have a lot more meat on them. There you see it again, it's kind of going in there, it's just pushing the pistons all the way back, flush with the inside surface area of the caliper itself. You see the pad being popped in there, and then the pins will go in afterwards behind those.
It's such a neat thing to watch. A great job from our camera crew to get such good pictures of that happening. It's one of the unique things of endurance racing that parts beyond just the cosmetic get changed out in these cars over the course of a race, and getting to see an example of it here in one of the pre-race sessions and pre-qualifying.
Good chance for the teams to maybe bed those new brakes in here in the final 11 minutes, but yeah, really interesting that it does seem to be a trend that it's the Mercedes so far that are on that program. To put a bow on the Dan Arrow story, though, real quick, he had to wait his turn, but he did ultimately get to race those Ford Fiestas. He won a Dutch Ford Fiesta Sprint Cup title in 2019 when he was 16 years old. Let's head back to the pits. Amanda Busick is back for us.
Oh, I think you saw us at the top of the broadcast when you were in the car. We were talking to Kenny Habul about you joining the team this weekend. Looks like you're getting up to speed so quickly in this Mercedes. What of your experience here is helping translate that?
Honestly, my first run felt so foreign because I'd done so many laps here in an Indy car. Felt very awkward, but feeling way more comfortable now. Really having fun and enjoying it. It's a great atmosphere. A bit more relaxed for me than IndyCar because you've got other drivers that can do a great job for you. But yeah, cool experience.
From the start of this session until right now, you just got out of that Mercedes. What was the biggest change?
That session, we got to do a new tire run at the beginning of it, and just kind of scrubbing tires for the race because it's so slippery on the outlap. And just did a few laps on an old set there just to get a feel.
I don't want to throw this word out there, but we've had some meetings on our own about what the weather might look like this weekend. I'm sure you have some experience with that. What is this place like with wet conditions?
It's okay. I mean, yeah, it's not nice when you come up on the banking. You got some rivers there. It's very unpredictable. I know from spending so many years at this place. It might say rain, but it might not rain, or it could rain, I don't know. So, yeah, I've been watching that. That could make things very, very interesting and probably entertaining for people.
Well, welcome to the paddock. Enjoy your weekend.
No, thank you.
Yeah, so cool to have him here. There have been quite a few IndyCar road races here that have been affected by rain over the years, so we'll at least know what the track feels like in the wet, but not in a GT car. So that would be difficult. He'd have traction control for the first time,
it should be
though.
easier. Yeah, you got ABS and stuff, so it should actually ease the pain, but it will certainly get spicy.
Yeah, but you'd have, the windscreen. I suppose you've got an aero screen now on the IndyCar, but there would be some visibility differences to work through. Anyway, we'll see if that even comes up. Right now, we don't have to talk about windows over Terre Haute. Everything looks just fine off to the west. We'll focus on today right now. We'll deal with tomorrow later. 8.5 minutes to go in pre-qualifying. Still to come today. More qualifying, or we get into qualifying, I should say, for the 8 hour, capped off by the pole shootout. We've also got several of the other series that are on the SRO America bill to race once again, including the season finale for McLaren Trophy.
We talk about Patrick Gallagher being drafted into the Turner Motorsports Group to try and win a championship. Alec Udell has obviously got the same scenario here. Did full season in IMSA with different driving partners, actually paired with Robert Wickens, which was awesome to see him in a GT3 car for the first time this year. Debuted at Long Beach last year. Co-drove with Alec in all of the sprint races over there, so he knows the car very, very well. As we said, he went on a tear last year, winning 8 races on the bounce with Tommy Milner. But again, a lot of pressure on those young shoulders with the championship on the line.
This was the only race he did not win last year in SRO America. Finished 3rd in class. Meanwhile, it looks like it is not just Mercedes that are doing the brake changes. Random Vandals electing to do some work at the right rear. You can see how hot the rotors still are, even with the gloves on and everything. The mechanics still recoiled. Gotta be careful. I wonder if this is a problem or if this is just how you get back into the paddock through Gasoline Alley.
Doesn't look like there's a terrible amount of panic or urgency there, which I think for them would be a good sign. But this is procedural, and maybe it is, you're right, Ryan, just a matter of getting that car A out of the way of the Porsche coming through, but B, just where it can get its nose in to get back to the paddock.
That gasoline alley cutout, it's about a third of the way down the pit lane, so anyone who's pitted towards pit out beyond that would either have to go out, do a lap, and come in, or get permission to be pushed back that direction.
And we talk about that team maybe being on a slightly different agenda for this session. 124.236 was the fastest time in that car. I'm not sure which of the drivers set that compared to the 51 machine. Philip Bain currently on board at a 123.663. So could be maybe managing tires a little bit, didn't stick her up or whatever during this session. But, and again, we talked about them going in different directions to start the weekend. I'm not sure whether they are overnight after some time here yesterday.
Questions we'll need to ask as we get set for qualifying. If you're new to this event, the qualifying format is an interesting one. All three drivers take part, and it's an aggregate time of the three drivers that then sets the grid from 11th on back. The top 10 head on to a pole shootout, which is a single driver format. We'll have that at the end of the day today. That ultimately then will set the grid from positions 1 through 10 for this year's edition of the Indianapolis 8-Hour presented by AWS. Little race breaking out down the front straightaway here at Indy. George Kurtz now aboard the CrowdStrike car, and just behind is Thomas Merrill, who is the third driver drafted in for the weekend for Archangel. Driver who maybe is not a household name, but I promise when he gets in anything, it goes fast.
He is doing everything, every trick in the book to try to get by the number 04. Pulled out and thought better of a move into 5 and 6, and now trying to get it back on the back straightaway. Now finally makes his way through, but yeah, a little early for racing action in the weekend.
Sets the table nicely, though. A little preview of what's to come. A couple good passing opportunities around this place, and although it's not the most technical layout you'll find, there are a few sections, Calvin, where the track goes one way, then the next, and it leads to some good crossover opportunities. We've actually seen the track race quite well for GT cars.
It really does, yeah. You know, I think particularly with the height of the curbs through those infield sectors, it allows you to eat those up a little bit, and if it gets a bit tight, you can take a bit more of the landscape available to you. So, yeah, particularly if you're on slightly a bit of an offset in terms of tire degradation and things like that, can be very exciting to watch. It does provide good side-by-side. You can go side-by-side for 2-3 consecutive corners there, still make it work without getting too dirty, so that's kind of fun.
Merrill, by the way, 2023 Asian Le Mans GT champion, 2022 Trans Am TA2 titleist. Brings a nice pedigree, but crucially, the right driver ranking into the lineup. 11th overall is where you find RS1. It is the Belgian, Alessio Piccarello, Belgian with an Italian name, which we found out is because he was born in Italy, right, Cal?
Yep, he certainly did. And they've also, we talk about the engineer on the 51 car coming back. They've also got the engineer that worked on the car at VIR.
Yeah.
And what did they do at VIR? They swept the weekend. So spoke to Alex Sedgwick yesterday, and he said we got Rafa back, so we're hoping for great things. And we'll see how they go.
I must have had the exact same conversation with Alex.
Okay.
Because he told me basically verbatim what you just said there. Yeah, that was a huge weekend for them, for the team. And look, they're doing this without the benefit of testing throughout the year. Most of their competitors are testing with greater regularity. And when you put all of it in perspective, a revolving door as far as engineering goes, it's a good little team based out of Florida, but maybe punching a bit above their weight here this year.
Yeah, for sure, and I hope they come back, because I think they've really done a great job this year, and I think they'll come into next year with a better notebook going to some of these tracks. A couple of weekends they seem to struggle a little bit for pace, but I'm sure they learned a lot. And I'm not sure whether they ran together, but Alex did share that Jan Halen had shared or been a teammate with Alessio in World Endurance Championship. I'm not sure if that was in sister cars or whatever, or whether they shared the same car together, but they're both Belgian, obviously, and seem to know each other.
Well, I think it's an indication that Alex is excited about Rafa and what he brings on the engineering side, because I actually had a very similar conversation to the both of you as well. He said right from the get-go of the weekend, as soon as they unloaded the transporters, he said Rafa had the whole team just kind of operating at a different level. He said it felt similar to what they had in VIR, like you said, when they had the success that weekend. But Alex was really confident about the prospects for this weekend and their pace, largely because of what Rafa brings. And I think it speaks to the importance of having a good engineer to help you, A, roll off the truck fast, but B, just guide you through such an important weekend. And especially, it's high praise to say that he's got the whole team operating at a different level. That's quite the compliment.
And I think some of that comes from the fact that we live in a world now of homologated cars. So if you run a Porsche here, yes, the tire can be different in a different North American Championship, or you can run it elsewhere in GT World Challenge. Europe would be on the same tire, of course. So these engineers that work with various teams globally will learn so much. Not like they're sharing trade secrets, but they'll know, well, we tried that before at this racetrack. I think this is a similar track, and this should work here, for example, when we talked about Marcel working with the 51 on the Random Vandals team. So just that notebook, that knowledge is so valuable, particularly on race weekends when you're trying to get the car dialed in.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's so important not to go down the wrong alley and waste time. Do you know what I mean? You got a 90-minute session. Some of these changes on the car are not quick. So if you like to go in the wrong direction, like, oh, this isn't work, we'll try a little fine-tuning, we're not going in the right direction. Sometimes it can take 15, 20 minutes on pit lane to get dampers and stuff like that changed, and suddenly you're behind the 8 ball and struggling to keep up pace.
Down to the final 15 seconds of pre-qualifying. Still to come today in the build-up to the Indy 8-hour. Qualifying beginning at 3:25 as far as our on-air coverage is concerned. Local time, that's U.S. Eastern time this afternoon. And then it culminates this evening with the pole shootout. We'll be on air at 5:40 p.m. local time to determine the top 10 positions and who will roll off from pole position for this season-ending race for GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, as well as Intercontinental GT Challenge. Checker flag is out. Those that are still on laps can complete them. Does not look like anyone's putting together the kind of lap that will see any significant change on timing and scoring. Mercedes, 1, 2, 3, 4, sending a message yet again with the 34 car from JMF, quickest of the bunch. Have a chance to hear from the team now. Amanda is standing by in the pits with the JMF team.
Yeah, Ryan, and one of those messages is being sent over to Random Vandals as that 34 Mercedes did take the top spot here in pre-qualifying. And Mackay Stevens just told me off camera, this is the biggest weekend of my career. It is no surprise that I walked up those stairs and found you intently watching the monitors as we counted down these minutes. But you already have your focus on qualifying and getting into that Super Pole. How do you make it happen from your effort?
We continue to respect the process. I do what I can to capture all the knowledge that's being provided by this tremendous organization in both Mick and Luigi. I mean, it's quite exceptional. It is, pardon me, an experience beyond words. So just beyond grateful to be able to be here, capture the moment, for it to be in our own backyard. It's quite the party.
Well, Mick did tell on you a little bit. He told us that you were nervous here heading into the weekend. How do you fight that within yourself?
Continue to reflect on what got us here, and so I believe that that's the beauty of all this. Is it goes to show how far we've come, but yet there's a bit more out there as always. So we're learning about who we are through what we love. It's a tremendous privilege.
And for you guys, what message does this send to Random Vandals?
We're here to do the best that we can, with all due respect to parties at hand. But Mr. Farrow deserves something big on this one, and we're going to give it our all.
We'll see you this afternoon.
Thank you.
That is Mackay Stevens from the Chicago suburb of Evanston. What's the old adage? Pressure is a privilege. I think that's kind of what he's living right here. A chance, albeit an outside one, but they could yet steal away a championship in the final weekend of the season. Here's the way the session played out. Divisional results here for pre-qualifying, and it was the JMF car quickest of the bunch by just over a tenth of a second. Mercedes 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the first of the BMWs, and it comes from the Turner camp. How about Dollarhide Racing? That time was set pretty early, and it stood great job. Eric Powell, Scott Dallahite, Stefano Gattuso, showing that could be a car to be reckoned with, not just in the M class, but in the overall order as well. And on down it goes through the top 18. Looking at our timing screens here, and effectively the whole field is covered by 1.3 seconds. 1 second covers 23 of the 25 cars, Cal. This is shaping up to be fascinating tomorrow.
Yeah, it really is, and I'll be curious to see. I mean, certainly the Mercedes on the lap time seem to have the pace right now. I think the BMWs may be a little bit stronger at the end of the straightaways here. So in terms of raceability, we'll have to wait and see, and I don't think that'll be displayed until we get deep into the race maybe here on Saturday. But yeah, next goal is to make sure you get into that Super Pole, and so all of the teams will be dialing the cars in here for this afternoon session. Track temps will be up a little bit, so they'll try and digest what they learned here yesterday as well at a similar time.
Well, that wraps up an exciting pre-qualifying, which we'll take a look back at here in a moment. Yeah, it was an exciting day on the track here at Indianapolis, with a lot to look forward to still to come today. Qualifying session, all three drivers take part in that. That's in just a few hours' time yet this afternoon. And then that whole shootout, Super Pole, to set the top 10 positions on the grid. It was a clean 90 minutes of running. That's what everyone wanted to see. No major issues of note. And for some that were on the back foot after miscues yesterday, that's all now well and truly in the past. But the message has been sent. Mercedes-AMG has laid down the gauntlet really all weekend long, but then capping it off here in the final unofficial session before qualifying. The top 4 positions. Just one little spin, nothing of significance. Easy recovery. Kyle Washington had a moment here down in turn 1 as well, where he went and explored just where the long cut, as it's called, is. Luke Hartog nearly went around. Quick hands kept the Dutchman pointing the right direction. Coming up, still today, qualifying 3:25 local time on these same streaming outlets, and then the pole shootout starting with coverage at 5:40 this evening for the Indianapolis 8 Hour, presented by AWS. See you for qualifying.